Chris.
Hey, Casey, how's it going?
Hey, honey, how you doing?
Well, the question is, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing okay. I still am. I'm much better in terms of vertigo, but I still have it. So it's really funny. It's definitely like a sign of a lowered immune system response. I feel today like I got chills and I'm not feeling very well. So it's just.
Honey, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think I just have such a deficit in my system from lack of sleep over a period of time with her that, like, if I even have, like 2 nights in a period of 2 weeks of not good sleep, I get run down, So I've really got to just super focus on rebuilding my system right now. So that's the skinny. But, otherwise, I'm good. Other than that, I have to say things are good. I've got some like good developments that are moving and happening and helping move things along with me and David, which feels good. So that's kind of where I'm at. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I'm trying to come out Shasta and see my grandkids. I guess I tell you I'm at the man up there, so it's going to be seeing everything.
I'm having some trouble hearing you, and I don't know why. Are you?
Oh, it's on my headset. Is that better?
That's a little better.
Is that better? Let me see if I can move it around a little bit.
It seems like something is knocking into it or something. It's
okay.
kind of scratching. That's good right now.
Okay, I'm untwisting it, and then I'm just going to put it gently down. Is that better?
Yeah, that's way better.
Okay, yeah, it's because I'm on a bumpy road. Once I get on the freeway, it should be much easier.
Okay, cool. Great.
Yeah,
so
I'm headed to North Shasta, and I'm going to see my grandkids, and then I'm going to I have a pretty hot date on, actually all weekend.
Really?
Yeah, so this man that I met through Jazz, but through they all work together. So there's a accounting firm in Mount Shasta, and he's the owner. And and his daughter, I met his daughter, and she was just like, when she met me, she goes, "Oh my gosh, your mom is so my dad's type. Like, he would love her. It's too bad she's not single." And my daughter said, "Oh, she is single." And so they set us up, and he's adorable. Like, I've never really been attracted to older, really like older men, at least my age or, close to my age or a little bit younger is more usually my thing. But this guy is really cute, and he's 60, but he is adorable. And so I'm just like gonna, he's really kind of pursuing me hot heavily, and I'm kind of enjoying it. So I must like him.
That is so fun.
Really fun. So I'm gonna have sex with him for the first time tomorrow night probably. So we'll see how that goes.
Wow. Oh, I love hearing that. That's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Yeah, I'll let you know. It'll be interesting. So yeah, he's cute though. He's good, and he seems much younger than 60. So I think we'll be a good match.
Wow, that's so exciting. I'm so happy to hear that you're dating someone great who's in hot pursuit, as they should be. I'm not surprised by that. You are a hot catch, that is for sure. I'm sure he's flipping thrilled.
Well, he hasn't caught me yet. So I told him he shouldn't count on that for at least 6 months or so. I said I really need to be single for a while, and I really feel that way. I can't go right from one relationship to another. It just doesn't feel right. So he's gonna have to wait on the exclusive commitment part.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's good. I mean, I don't know. I think it's good to feel it out, you know. You've been in a
Yeah.
long-term relationship, and totally. I mean, you know, I think it's really easy for people to want to be like, we're in relationship rather than we're having such an amazing time relating, you know?
Exactly. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, and with it being long distance and stuff too, it'll be really fun. He's excited. I mean, it's really perfect. He's a very busy man, and he has a very independently busy life, and I'm just going to encourage him to keep dating, you know, and he may not want to, and I may not want to, and I already don't, like, want to, you know, it's too much just to have all these people like texting all the time.
Wow,
But,
that's so great. It's so great.
yeah. But that's what's going on a personal level. And meanwhile, I did text Robin and ask him. I'm not getting a lot of information out of him, but what I get from him, you know, I said, why did you think of me as one of your speakers? You know, why did you want me as one of your speakers? And there's a couple things. I think for Robin, like, I really bring that balance to his life as that sort of spiritual place where, you know, it's a different kind of language than leadership and business and all of that. It's more spiritual. It's more balanced. It's more harmonious. It's, you know, it's more about the depth of life. And then what he said was, I want you to show the audience what it means to live a great life and transform them through your story. So that's what he said. That's all he said. This is very vague.
So show them what it means to live a great life and transform them through your story. Great.
Yeah.
Really great.
Yeah.
Well, I have some thoughts, and I have a preliminary structure here that I've been working with.
Okay.
But I want to share with you a little bit of the thought that I have, which is that, like, you know, I mean, it's such a significant thing that your early work, I mean, Richard's work, that what you guys have lived together, what makes your living of a great life is this core message of don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like in this talk, what I'm sensing is this like drawing upon, when we get to the part where we talk about how, you know, let's see here, hold on. You know, when we talk about, like, you know, my life was probably a lot like yours. It was so busy and living the good life. You know, we were living our dreams. We were the creators of the don't sweat the small stuff message. And we lived that, you know. I mean, we really did. And even with that, we you know, we had the normal family things going on, the busyness, the doing, the achieving. And there was just touching on the place where you were so busy that only after losing him could you see how actually not awake to life you were at that time.
Right. The contrast was so deep. Yeah, the contrast it was brief.
So even though, so I feel like there's almost like a reveal that is like a letting them in on like, yeah, I mean, you would imagine the people who lived that message and wrote that book, like, you know, that maybe we're just so appreciating all the most important stuff in life. But the thing is that it took me losing him to really understand really what is the most important stuff in life. And that, you know, that was through that, even though you were living that message, it was only through that loss that you really realized what it was to be truly awake to life. And,
can I?
Yeah, please.
Ironically, Richard, this might be a really nice little conclusion because I have so much time. Ironically, Richard lived very awake to the fact that he could walk out the door and die. He really did. Like, he left this home that's called When If Tomorrow Never Comes. He left it all over our house, like, so that we would find it.
Wow.
And I read
So.
I know. He left it all over our house. I mean, in Jazz's bedroom, on the kitchen counter, in his office, in Kenna's room. I mean, he left one almost in every room of the house so that we would be sure to read it. And that was, and I think that's a really beautiful addition to, like I've read that film before. It's really just that it really drives that whole meaning home about living life, as if you could walk out the door at any time, and that's like such a powerful, and Richard did live that way. He really did. It was amazing. I didn't. I lived as if I had all the time in the world.
I'm just trying this down. This is amazing, Chris. Okay, I think that's the piece that I think that we need to really turn this into like the next evolution of what it means to not sweat the small stuff that comes authentic from your voice and your perspective and how it, like the path that you've had to get on to really deeply get for you really what that means for you. And I think that reveal is gonna, I don't know, I just think that's gonna open people. It's so honest, it's so heartbreakingly honest.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something people, I love that. I love this piece. That poem, that's amazing. You've never shared that with me. That's incredible. And the fact that he wrote you that love letter.
Yeah.
And
the day before he died, he wrote me on a box, like in the car. The day before he died, he took this flattened carton. It was just the only thing he had to write on, and he wrote me in this big print. It said, it was on the steering wheel when I got to the car. It said, Chris, I heart you. I heart you so much. And then it just said, thank you for being my life partner, Richard.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing.
And then he died. He died the next day. Can you believe that?
Wow. Was that typical? Did he write you notes like that all the time, or was that like?
He did. I mean, he did write notes like that, but this particular time, he was so careful about saying all of his goodbyes. I mean, it was so weird. He was one of the busiest times for him is when he was launching a book and he was promoting a book and he was making sure that he saw all of the people that were significant to him. And it was excessive, he was like, no, we have to go see them. It was weird. It was like as if there was some whisper in his ear that he didn't have much time left. It was just the most incredible thing.
Wow. Yeah, what a deeply spiritual man.
Oh, so conscious. I mean, honestly, so conscious. In his journal, the day before he died, his journal, it said, he always went up to San Francisco to stay at the airport. It said in his journal, I don't know if he did it or not, he didn't tell me, but I would assume he did. He had it in his appointment book, go to Half Moon Bay, sit at the ocean, and pray to Jesus, Baba, and Buddha.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and I just think about all of those things, like how, it was just so poignant. I mean, but he really did live such a rich life, and he did so much for such a young man. He really did. He did so much. But I have to be careful because what I always do, and that the only criticism criticism I always get when I speak is that I make my talk so much about Richard that people want to hear more from me. Like but I do make my whole talk about Richard. It's so easy for me to do that.
Wow. These are amazing. I mean, I think, sharing, like there's something about sharing these that are, it leads to that kind of like wow that he just knew. That's a really amazing piece of the story. But then the piece that I think that there's that context. But then there's also the context of tying it in, like we just talked about, to how he really lived this with perspective. Like he really lived having that perspective that he didn't have all the time in the world. So the deep appreciation, and that wasn't that way for you. So, I mean, of course it was, right? To some extent, he wouldn't have been with you if it wasn't obviously there. But
no, I wasn't totally asleep. I wasn't totally asleep, but I wasn't as conscious as he was. I mean, I was the one running the family and doing everything for him and the girls, and I was a pretty traditional wife to him and a pretty traditional mother. I wasn't on the career path when he died. I was doing committee work in schools, and I was living. Our dream was. I was holding his space and holding space for our daughters in our lives. So I was busy doing all the doctor appointments and all that crap, I was running all the homes. I was doing all that stuff. So that's not necessarily the most evolved, like you don't, like, he spent his life, his energy, his life doing what I'm doing now. It's far easier to be conscious when that's what your whole life is about. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that, but it is. It's like your focus is that. So I'm not saying it was easier. I'm just saying that when it's your focus, it is easier.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't have wrote Don't Set the Small Stuff for Women. It was a New York Times bestseller. I was paid $1 million to write it, and I never talked about it.
Wow.
It wasn't to me. It wasn't my thing at that time. Like I didn't even want to acknowledge the writing career very often because it took me away from my focus, which was already a big focus. Like I was already really, intrinsically involved in everyone's life. So I think it's not uncommon for women to lose themselves and to feel that sense of a lack of passion when they're caring for 3 other individuals all the time. It's like it's a very common occurrence.
I understand. Yeah. Wow. Well, I want to talk a little bit about maybe a couple other stories, because I know that, I just want to share, what are some moments that stand out to you as you reflect back that are indicative of how you were, yes, awake, but not fully awake, not the stories that are indicative of how you still thought you had all the time in the world. I'm going to brainstorm on that.
Okay. I would say that I didn't really understand presence, what true presence was, until I practiced it and breathed. I wasn't really noticing my joy in my life either. Like I wasn't noticing passion or joy. Like I remember sitting with Rich Dutra St. John from Challenge Day, and I served on the board of directors of Challenge Day. And I remember he asked me, "What are you passionate about, Chris? What are you passionate about right now in your life?" And I remember just looking at him with this blank stare and saying, "Passion? And why do I need passion?
Wow.
And, and I really didn't know the answer to that. Like, passion, what are you talking about? Like, what do I need that for? Like, I couldn't think of anything I was feeling really passionate about, like, as far as my committee work and, and those kinds of things. And I was like, well, what do I need that for? Like, what does that mean? And I just remember the difference to how passionately I live now. Like, I'm so passionate about everything. And I'm so, I feel so much more, passion is a great word to describe how I live now.
Wow. How would you describe what passion is? What is it that you have now? If you couldn't use the word passion, like, what is it that you're doing or being now that you weren't then?
I know what my life purpose is, and I feel great meaning. Like, there's great meaning in my life. There's this way in which I didn't want to step up. Like, Richard was always asking me to step forward in his work with him, and he did when we wrote Don't Slip the Small Stuff in Love. But when he asked me to write Don't Slip the Small Stuff for Women, I didn't want to write it. Like, I just didn't want to do it. And there was a part of me that maybe didn't believe that I could. Maybe that there was a part of me that felt like I was stepping too much on his platform and not enough in my own, arena. And there was a lot of self-doubt, and I didn't really maybe want to shine him in any way either. Like, there was this way in which I thought holding his space was the best, that was my life contribution. And then when he died, it was like I had to step up. I had to either step up or just let it go. And it's like a way in which I had to step in and up and take over and do those things that I wouldn't have done, didn't want to do. And I did write Don't Slip the Small Stuff for Women. That's such a cute story. It always makes people laugh because, he sat down and he said, I have such good news. The publisher was so pleased that I was a writer too, and that after writing Don't Slip the Small Stuff in Love, they are also pleased that I could promote and that I was good on camera and I could interview really well. And so they said, do you think Chris would write a book for women in the series? And so he came to me and he was really excited to tell me. He was seated across from me and I was on the couch and said, I have something so exciting to tell you. And I was like, what? He goes, it's so great. Hyperion has asked if you would like to write Don't Slip the Small Stuff for Women. And I looked at him and I'm like, are you serious? And he said, yeah. And I go, I don't want to do that. And he just laughed. Like, he goes, what? He goes, what? He goes, I didn't expect you to say that. And I go, oh my God, why would I want to do that? And he goes, well, I can think of a million reasons why you'd want to do that. He's like, I can think of at least a million reasons why you want to do that. Because we were making $1 million advances on Don't Slip the Small Stuff book at that time.
Right. I'm kind of like, holy, what over the size of that advance? Oh my God.
Yeah, so we're making $1 million advances on a Don't Slip the Small Stuff title, and so he was like, well, I can think of a million reasons why you might want to do that. And then he goes, sat back and he crossed his legs on he got that sort of therapist look that he would get sometimes when he was going to help me figure something out. And he kind of rested his face and his chin in his hand, and he kind of stroked his cleft chin, and he said, all right, well, let's talk about this. And he goes, can you tell me why you feel that way? And I just go, well, not exactly, except that I felt frozen when you said it. I felt terrified of? And I said, well, I guess I'm terrified that if I leave our home, like our girls are, I mean, I feel like it's going to take me away from the girls, and I feel like, I'm their stability. And he said, well, what if I could be their stability while you're on book tour? He goes, I sure enjoy that, because you both with you for a while. And he goes, I'd like to be home because I'd love to have that opportunity. So I don't think you have to worry there. And he said, all right, well, why don't you think about it? Why don't you think about it, and just, and see how you feel tomorrow after you've settled into the idea. And we'll talk tomorrow. So we came back and we talked again, and I said, well, look, I really don't think I want to write this book. And I said, what will happen if I say no? And he said, well, I can't write a book for women on my own. So I'd probably have to have another woman write it with me, and be another woman. And I just went, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, it would be kind of weird. There'd have to be another woman. I'd have to pick somebody else. And I said, I just was like, that was all it took. I was like, all right, I'll do it. He's like, well, I have to ask another woman, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I'll run in. And he assured me, just like, Chris, we live this stuff. There's no other person in the world that's more equipped to write a Don't Flip a Small Stuff book for women than you. There isn't. And he goes, we live this stuff. So he said, don't worry about having the degree in psychology or whatever that's making you feel afraid. Just do it. It'll be fine. And then, that's really a kind of a good story, I think, because it sort of shows how wise he was and how we were a team and how I kind of rallied, but I didn't want to.
That's such a good story. Such a good story. Oh my God.
And then my other story is how I wanted to, when I had to go on the national tour, did I ever tell you about that story when I I had to go on the national, book tour. And when I was coming home from Hawaii the week before I was supposed to leave for LA, I seriously looked at the plane door and I seriously wanted to jump out of the plane. Like I was so terrified out of my mind that I wanted to open up the plane door so bad and just jump out. And when I went back to the seat and I told Richard, I go, oh my God, I am so scared. And he's like, I go, I want to jump out of this plane. I want to open that door and jump out. And he goes, well, don't do that because we'll all die if you do that. and then we laughed. And then the next week I went to LA and I had to do this voice tour, like this. It's where you sit in a studio and it's a satellite tour. And I was slated to do 50 interviews back to back. And the day before I went and did that, I had a media coach session because they wanted to make sure I was media trained. It was like this long day with this media coach session. And oh my God, Casey, they freaked me out so bad because they brought up all of the negatives. Like they did exactly what research shows not to do, like with anybody now. Like research on happiness shows that you never get somebody thinking negatively before they're going to go do something that's really stretching them out of their comfort zone. Whether it's an exam like that kids are taking or a presentation, this is actually a great story for CEOs because I can tie in the research. Like you don't want to ever show anybody something negative because it just it completely dismantles them, and that's exactly what happened to me. We went over all of the potential problems and obstacles I might face being Richard White in the media, and they freaked me out with all this strategy so bad that the night of the tour, I was supposed to get up at 2 a.m. to go down and do 50 interviews back to back. And the night of the tour, I woke up to go down to do my interviews, and I had 100% laryngitis. I had no voice.
What?
And Yeah, I had no voice. I never had laryngitis in my life. I had no voice. I had the hotel maitre d' call Richard. I had to write him a note. I mean, I'm serious. I couldn't even croak a word. And Richard had to call Hyperion and had to cancel the entire media tour. And so I went back home, and actually I felt fine about it because I was out of it. I was completely out of doing it, and I was so terrified that I even though my voice didn't come back right away, I was so happy that I didn't have to do that. I was so scared. And so it was so funny because 2 days later, Richard comes and he goes, I bet you're feeling pretty relieved that you don't have to do that media tour. And I was nodding yes. He goes, well, sorry to tell you that. They've rescheduled it for next week.
Oh.
Oh. And he goes, we have some work to do. He goes, we have some work to do. And he goes, but we're not. He goes, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all those notes that those media coaches told you to do, and we're going to burn them. And he goes, I don't want you to think about any of that. He goes, we're going to sit down and we're going to get you really confident about just being yourself. And he's like, and then that's when he said to me something so profound that really impacted him. He said, one of the things that I've realized in all of the speaking that I've done is that people don't remember exactly what it is you said, but they remember how you made them feel when you said it. And he said, if you can remember that what you need to do in every media interview is allow people to get to know you and like you and be comfortable with you as a human being relating to them. He said, that's all you need to do. What you say is insignificant because they won't remember what you say, but they will remember how you make them feel. And that impacted me. And
That's really beautiful.
Isn't that? And then that impacted me so much. Like, I literally went out and I did those 50 interviews. Not one interview was at all antagonistic. They were all supportive. I just was myself. I did have even some talking points that that we mapped out, stuff, some things to refer to, but I was completely myself and fresh every interview, and it was a breeze.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And you wouldn't have known that the week before I was paralyzed with fear.
Wow. All right, I'm writing these down. This is a good. These are amazing stories. They're amazing. And I wanna pull. I just wanna kind of just redirect a little to see are there any other stories that you have about like places where when you reflect back, you were like, wow, I just wasn't I wasn't as awake as I am now. Like I wasn't, I love the story about, the connection here around passion is huge. But there was one story that stands out in my mind that you told me before, just about, just the busyness of just the busyness and being in the kitchen and dealing with this and that and not really paying attention fully to.
Yeah, like I talked to Richard the night before. I talked to him, the night before he died and, on the phone and we were so busy and we almost didn't even have time to talk. And the girls didn't have time to talk to him. And they were like, oh, we can't talk together now. We've got to get these reports done. And, I was almost annoyed that I needed to be on the phone. And that's really the last time that I ever talked to him.
Wow, that's huge. That's such a, hang on, make sure I capture.
And I missed, I picked up the phone in the morning and I missed him by 5 minutes. I usually woke up much earlier, but for some reason that morning I woke up later and he got on the 6 a.m. flight to New York and I got up at 6:05 and I missed him by 5 minutes.
Wait, say that again?
Oh, I missed him by 5 minutes. He got on the plane at 6:05 and I called him, or at 6, and I called him. He just
Oh man, write this down. Wow. Okay, that's an amazing one. I mean, that might just, I think that might just encapsulate it. You know, I don't know if they'll need anything really beyond that. But out of curiosity, is there anything else that comes to you? You know, I mean, I think that what's really going to speak to these people is it's the insanity of the busyness. You know.
Yeah. It was.
It's the insanity of the busyness, and I think that's really the core of the message. You know, it's like really really like if that's the transformation I think that these people have, then looking at like this shift in their perspective, it's like they have all the time in the world to no, they don't actually. And knowing that we don't have all the time in the world and bringing that back into our awareness, how does that change how you are with people in your life or what you're up to in your life? You know, are you just going to continue on the status quo? Are you going to be too busy to talk to the people that you love? Because that's what so many of us do in this like really the lifestyle everybody there who is living. They're all high achievers, you know, trying to make it all happen.
The other thing that occurs to me is how numb to life and numb to feeling, you know, life. Like I had all this exposure to Challenge Day and I really had a hard time crying. Like I had a really hard time allowing myself to sink into deeper feelings of like really before Richard died, I could never cry. Like I just couldn't be that vulnerable, and I don't know why. I just couldn't. It was like I guess there was this part of me that felt like if I couldn't be happy, you know, really seemingly happy, which to me now happiness means something totally different. Like to me now, happiness is about full expression. It's not about this sort of idea of what happy is. It's about actually living in full expression like a child is, you know, that to me is happy, that you acknowledge when you're sad and you acknowledge when you're angry and you acknowledge all of your human emotions. You don't act them out like in an insane way. But there's this acknowledgement and this expression that's just natural that isn't repressed or suppressed. And I felt somehow I was so suppressed to my tears before Richard died, and then suddenly I had something really real to cry about, and it released like I want to say years and years and years of tears. I mean, it was like I cried buckets. Like I cried these tears. They were like golf ball sized tears. I mean, it was crazy. Like just buckets of water came out of my eyes, and it you know, and now I just find it so much. I don't cry a lot, but I find it so much easier just to express, you know, vulnerably and just to be open with all of my emotions when I came up, and they're not in a reactive way, but in a responsive to life way. That you know, people who kind of live a little bit numb, they're basically more reactive because they've got all this pent up stuff, you know, whereas when you're responsive to life, you know, you're responsive to your emotions, you're not reacting to the knee-jerk reaction.
Just capturing that, that's such an amazing gem. Hold on. Responsive to emotions, not knee-jerk.
And so much of that's what the concept of wisdom is about, being responsive to life. Like it is about not reacting and not like taking that pause. You know, taking a pause. Now I've always been pretty good at that. Like I've always, because that was like part of our philosophy that we really practiced a lot, and you know, we practiced really good communication, and I've never been a super reactive person. I've always been more of a responsive person, but I think that's really key. That's kind of a key teaching thing. And then there's this other idea that came to me.
This is amazing.
When we're going to talk about this. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I mean, this is so huge because, you know, I mean, there's this whole thing in here and really talking about, I mean, the key to just like really living in this way, which we need to kind of define like what that like what is the thing that we're opening them to, but it is like not sweating the small stuff, but it's not sweating the small stuff so that you can really live the big stuff and just be fully alive.
Fully
I mean,
present.
this is
Fully present.
fully present.
Fully present with your kids, fully
Say,
present with your spouse.
like, you can say with such authority that you are a living example of someone, you and your family, a living example of people who were like living really sane, spiritually conscious lives, being super high achievers, and still it took for you really having access to what matters most, to really having that perspective in your life. I mean, in terms of knowing that you don't have all the time in the world, that gave you access to that, and that you can say that even with all the success, the ultimate way of living and having an amazing, incredible life is being fully awake to your life.
Right.
Like, really. I can tell you, we had the big house. We had all the money. We were like, like living, I mean, another way, I mean, also like, I mean, like spiritual, privy to all the powerful, I don't know, there's something about that, it's not just because you guys did have such deep values that you were living your life by. It's not like you were just materialist people or something.
No, we weren't. Yeah, no, we weren't. No, I mean, we actually had a really nice balance that way. Yeah, we had a really good balance that way. We didn't go crazy. We really didn't want to go crazy then, we really stayed super grounded for our family and kids. And yeah, we were never like super crazy materialistic people. I mean, just having kind of traveled to India and seeing how little people have, like that really impacted us in our studies. I mean, we went to India, we came home and we launched this huge food drive because we were just so like, we had to do something, I mean, like for the people here that reminded us of the people there. And yeah, we were always pretty grounded that way. I mean, we did some of that, like our kids were wearing designer jeans and, we were definitely, we moved to a bigger house and, we drove really nice cars and stuff, but I mean, we were making millions of dollars a year. I mean, millions. And we did not look like, we did the trip stuff, we did stuff, but it wasn't like we were not ostentatious at all. Our friends would say it changed us very little.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine most of the people who are coming to this event are people who, they can relate to like, they're guided by really like good values,
Yeah.
But sure. Even with all that, there's still this like, if you aren't fully aware of the preciousness of the time that you have here, and it's the only thing that's going to have you really be fully awake to the miracle that is your life and gets you present to your life. And without that, when we're asleep to that, we can take all kinds of things for granted. And taking those things for granted leaves us less alive and less truly fulfilled, less happy. It's just, that's the thing that I think he's really wanting you, the guy who is leading this event, Robin, right?
Yeah, Robin.
That's the thing I think he wants them to see. This is your secret to the good life, right?
Yeah.
You have this perspective. This all doesn't last forever.
No, I mean, Richard's watch, leather jacket, watch still remains in the bathroom where he left it. He had some cheap watch he was wearing so he could see the numbers. So his good watch sitting in the bathroom still, and his leather jacket on the chair in his office where he left it. And I never moved those two things. And it reminds me, when I sit there in his office and I'm working, and it reminds me that of the temporary nature of life. That these material things remain, but he's not in form any longer, and he left these things. They're just sitting there, but it reminds me of how temporary everything is. And like as a bigger life lesson, when you can really get that everything is temporary, well then you don't put the small stuff because that's really temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. What's your comfort level of sharing that piece of the story?
Oh, I just said that.
Okay, great. Great. Okay. Write it down. Okay, I feel like, hang on one second. Hold on.
I think the last thing, too, which might be really cool to talk about, or one of the teaching things is gratitude. And, gratitude and presence are two things that I feel really good about talking about. They've been like the themes of my podcast. And this idea of taking a golden pause throughout your day, too, like that's been sort of a really big theme in my podcast, too.
A golden pause?
A golden pause. Yeah, something like we one of the chapters in I think it was Easier Than You Think is taking a golden pause. And Richard used to talk about it in his lectures because it's something that you can teach and it's easy to do. And I could even do one because I do it all the time in my podcast. I do it all, I call it a golden pause. I start every podcast with a golden pause. So I could, 3 deep breaths. It's like leading us through 3 very deep breaths. And it's that simple. And what that does, it really changes. You can practice that on an ongoing basis. And before you speak, before you speak anything where you feel charged or reactive or anything, it'll completely alter what comes out of your mouth. Like you'll completely do something so much wiser and so much. And the example that I shared on my podcast recently was this guy who he'd heard Richard speak and about the golden pause, and he had this situation come up at work where, like, he was really having some struggles in his work. He was told that he needed to learn how to communicate more effectively because he get really angry, and his anger was sometimes cause such a conflict it could end up in court or something. It was really bad, and so he really needed to learn something different. And so he remembered Richard talking about the golden pause lecture, and he was telling Richard that he practiced this during this situation where he felt like somebody was trying to take advantage of his inexperience at work, and it made him so angry that he could almost get physical, and he felt so angry, and so he just closed his eyes and he took 10 really deep breaths, and he just remembered this idea of, I'm just going to pause, and he allowed himself to calm down, and then it was the first time he never reacted. Like, he completely handled the situation in a totally different way. And so it's like it's an amazing tool for people.
Wow. Okay. This is good. I just wrote down some notes on that piece. I love this golden pause. That's such a beautiful thing to share with them. I'm thinking, about how to weave all of this so it's just like one continual story. Different aspects of a story, but it's all through a story rather than, what we've done in the past of like, it's like following there's a bit of a timeline that it's following of how the things evolve. So you don't need to think about that. I'm just like letting you know that's what's happening in my brain. I want to share with you a little bit of like, and this is super rough right now, but a little bit of the structure and how it's evolving.
Okay.
And hold on, I'm having a thought about the ending. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So I have here that we're going to intro the story about him passing, and telling that whole story, and then there is a sharing about. At some point, there is a share about that, and within all that, about that he was the original writer of the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and that you then ended up both, being you and your family was the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff series family. And then we have a key piece here about really around him after him dying, remembering some places like this. Can you hear me?
I'm having a hard time hearing.
You are? Oh dear. I'm having a hard time hearing you too, actually. Are you by chance in a low cell area? Because I have full bars. Can you hear me? Oh dear.
Hey, Casey,
Yeah.
is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, I hear you better now.
Okay. Yeah, I must have just lost my connection or something. It's better now too for me.
Okay, good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Hang on one second. Okay. Cool. All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, that's much better.
Looks great. Okay. So this is better. All right. All right. Now we have Okay. What I'm going to do here, because you're in the car, it's going to be easier for me to do this and while it's all fresh in my mind. I kind of have a weaving that's happening in my brain right now about how to tie this and what's the key thing of, like, closing it. And I want to talk with you a little bit about the closing. This is not the actual closing, but I want to talk about the key theme of the closing.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's going to direct some of the purpose of it. And something about, within like the wrap of the message is really about how, we were living, not sweating the small stuff, but I think that it took having, for me, it took having for you, like a true, it took, for me, that it took loss, significant loss in order to wake up in life and have the perspective so that I could really actually see what was the really small stuff.
Right.
So that I could really be present to be living the big stuff, to be truly awake to life. And, for each of us, it doesn't have to take a catastrophic loss for us to have that perspective. Richard he had that perspective without having to have catastrophic loss. He lived that way without needing to have that. This was my own, this was your own medicine.
Well, he had a loss. He did have a loss early on in our, he had a loss, and I think that's what taught him, it was a big loss, actually. It was, what happened is, one of his best men was traveling to our wedding, Robert, and he got hit head-on by a drunk driver, and he and his date, who we never met, were killed instantly. And we almost canceled our wedding because it was so devastating, and it was so devastating to Richard, and he always kept a photograph of Robert that he had, where Robert was just pointing at him hey dude, he always took this photograph of Robert right at his desk and where he could see it every single day. And I really believe that taught Richard early on in his life, as a man in his 20s, about how, quick life can change and end. He really got that from that loss, and it was a big loss for him because he felt so responsible, that Robert had been coming for our wedding and died this way. It was such a big loss. And many dreams where Robert would come to him and tell him that he was fine and happy and, everything was good. And, so anyways, I do think that loss impacted him greatly. And so in a way, it didn't impact me as greatly because it did, of course, but it wasn't my friend. You know what I mean? It was a terrible thing. And of course I felt that, and I was, but it wasn't the same kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It is through our health cares, and it's like when I had the same thing happen to me recently that you did. You had that spot. Well, I had breast cancer. I had the same thing. I had a biopsy on my breast, and now I have a tick mark, I have a scar on my breast, and from the biopsy, and there's a chip inside me now, and it. I had the same thing. It just woke me up. I've learned to ask the question, what can this wake me up to? And that's the question. When something happens negatively, I always ask now, what is this? Why has this shown up in my life? Why is this here? And what can it wake me up to?
Okay, say that piece for me again. That feels majorly important. I want you to say it for me one more time, if that's okay.
Yeah. So when we have something traumatic in our life happen, whether it's a health scare or like when I had this breast biopsy recently, for 2 weeks I lived with the idea of, wow, I might have cancer. And I thought about, rather than get really into the worry of that, I decided to ask, why has this shown up? What has it shown up to wake me up to? How can I wake up to how can I wake up to my life even deeper? And I was sort of, at the time, I was sort of dealing with kind of a last layer of grief where I really had just been to a workshop and I'd done this holotropic breath work, and there was a sound healer, and in the workshop I went, and every time I do this deep breath work, I see this pulsing light, and it's like a heartbeat pulsing, and then it just becomes this solid light, and I know it's Richard, and I know he's come to visit me and to show me his presence. And in this particular session, I didn't want to breathe. I didn't want to breathe. Now, it's not as if I really wanted to die, but I wanted to be with him longer, and I wanted to be in that space, in that consciousness longer. And when I came out of it, and of course I breathed and I came out of it, there was a woman present at the workshop, and she had a brain tumor. She has a brain tumor, and all she could say after the breath work was cry and say, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And what occurred to me when she was saying that, even though I couldn't articulate it right away, was that I didn't want to live. I wanted to be with Richard. And that was pretty recent. But then, like, the next week, I got the breast cancer scare. Like, I got the call that I need to go into the biopsy. And I thought, wow, isn't that just divine timing? And isn't that just divine timing for me to get to choose to live again? Like, to really say, no, I don't want to die. I want to live. And I don't want to lose my breast. I want my breast to stay the same. I kind of like my nipples the way they are. I mean, it's like, and I just think there's such divine timing that way. It was divinely orchestrated for me to really, again, opt in and say, I want this. I want this life. I want to make the most of this life. I'm here, and I'm here to stay. And I'm here to stay as long as I can and live as big as I can live.
Wow. So good.
It's very vulnerable. That's super vulnerable. It's very fresh because that just happened.
Wow. Yeah. I'll put it in here as a possibility. I'm going to put in here the breast cancer scare story. I think it's a possibility. I'm not sure. We just got to be super tight in keeping everything really tied into the main central idea of the talk, and that's a possibility. We'll keep it in there and see if it weaves in. But what I love is this question, when we have something really traumatic in our life happen, which is going to happen to all of us if it hasn't already. We're all going to face loss. We're all going to face, we're going to have to face our own mortality or the mortality of people that we love. And the question, it's I wonder if it's also like other things in their life. Maybe we could give us some examples. But I love this piece that's asked the question, how can I wake up to my life even deeper? Like, how can I use this experience to wake up to my life even deeper? It's kind of like this shifting this concept on its head that people can feel victimized in some way.
Yeah.
That's kind
Absolutely.
of the choice, right? Like they can feel victimized by what happens to them, or they can realize that it's all in service to them to live deeper.
Yeah. And that is the difference. I mean, that is the core teaching is to look at how life provides you what you need to learn and grow. And that it isn't always pretty, it's not always nice, it's not always fun. I mean, but life does provide you. And sometimes, we learn from the joyful things in our life and from the successes, and we learn from our failures and the things that we make when we make mistakes too. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes I made after Richard died, well, there were two. There was the getting on the plane and, not having not having enough discernment, like with the stalker. And then the second less dramatic story that I had was I was preoccupied and didn't have my golden retriever on a leash on a trail that had a leash law, and he jumped up on an older woman and knocked her down and broke her shoulder and sued me for $1 million. And she didn't get awarded $1 million. She was awarded, a much more appropriate amount of money. But the whole point was, I made a mistake. Now, there's another core teaching in that story is that in the deposition, because it was really an insurance claim, in the deposition, what I really had this amazing insight, and in the deposition, I realized I could transform any situation from discomfort into being comfortable by transforming it through love, like by being just in a space of presence and love and not being in a space of anger. It transformed a very uncomfortable deposition into something that was actually full of laughter and really, I actually had the opposing attorney really just being so kind to me. I mean, So,
okay.
And, because all of those people will relate to the fact that, you do get sued. I mean, when you have money and stuff, you don't have any leeway. I mean, this woman knew who I was. She was an old neighbor who used to drop books off at our house to have them signed. She knew exactly who I was. When I saw her on the trail, and I saw her gown, and I knew what had happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get sued.
You cut out for a minute. Who was on the trail?
Oh, this woman was an old neighbor of mine.
Oh.
She used to drop off. I used to go shopping with her, like antiquing, and she used to drop books off at our house. And so, but it was funny because I knew I was going to get sued. I just knew it, and it's because of the world that we live in now. It's like it's a vicious world, and it's like I just knew that I should have had my dog on a leash. It was the day before I was giving a speech, and I was really, he needed to run, and I've never seen anybody on this trail, and it was just, I had all sorts of reasons why. The fact that I had just picked him up from an $800 training school, he never jumped on anybody. He's a golden retriever. So, but that day he did. But,
wow.
I never stressed about it, though. It was really interesting. I knew I had good insurance, and even though she was suing me for $1 million, I knew that, she wouldn't be awarded that. I knew that, but we almost went to trial, and we came a week shy of going to trial, and I was like, she wouldn't settle. They wouldn't settle, and it was purely because of money. And at some point during the deposition, it was really funny because the attorney said to me, he said, well, Chris, did you read section so-and-so in the deposition where, Susan Randall says this? And I said, no, I didn't read it. He said, well, did you read section so-and-so where your attorney defends you in such and such? And I said, no, I didn't read that either. And he said, well, did you read any of the documents that were mailed to you? And I said, absolutely not. And he looked at me and said, and I said, do you know what I do for a living? And he said, yes, I realize that you're an author. And I said, well, I'm supposed to be what's called an inspirational author. And I said, I don't find this case at all inspiring to myself or anyone. And I think, we're talking about a situation of greed and money right now. And I said, I can't, I didn't find this at all inspiring, and it wasn't about me and what I did. This is about who's going to make money from it.
Mm-mm.
So I said I didn't find it, I didn't read those things, no.
Wow. Awesome. Wow, this is great, Chris. So many good supporting stories. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I need to work on revising the structure of it, and then we're really going to go through it and feel into different pieces of it when we talk next week. And I'm going to, I think let's explore. I want to make sure that we're weaving this in a way that has the core of the message just like seamlessly come through, as well as this. It's not anything overt, but this like evolution of what it means to not sweat the small stuff, through your own personal journey, which naturally in sharing that will be an evolution of the core message of don't sweat the small stuff. We don't need to be super like salesy overt about it by any means at all, but just a very natural, authentic expression of it. And I want to make sure that gets woven in. And I feel like, like if I were to ask you one question about this, like what would be, like it's almost like, okay, people are going to hear this talk, they may be moved by it emotionally, but I want us to really look at it and answer the question. Let's just riff on this for a minute. Like, what's in it for them? Right? What's in it for them? What is it that they're going to be able to walk away and be like, holy shit, like, I'm totally, like that's, I need this. This has moved me. I see my life different. What's in it for them? What is the benefit of this talk for them? And again, we're assuming that the core issue that we're talking about here, it's people who are up to incredible things in the world, very high achievers, and probably are moving pretty fast.
Yeah, I think it's like, waking up to, I think it's waking up to really the people that matter most to you in your life and not taking those relationships for granted.
Yes. Okay. All right. I think it is. This is very much about, I think I really love that you just said that. Say it one more time.
I think it's about waking up to the people that you love in your life and not taking them for granted, like not assuming that you're going to have all the time left to spend with those that you love. That, many of these people have already been through the divorce and maybe have a great love of their life because they took that person for granted. And maybe, maybe that's the wake up that, I know Robin, like if you could play things forward and somebody told you, you're going to be divorced, you're going to be, you're not going to be with this person when you first fall in love with them. Well, nobody wants to think that way, But when somebody dies, it's the same thing, you don't have all the time in the world to really take that person in, But there's a way in which you can live so fully awake to that it helps you appreciate every moment more and every connection. You don't put off. I like watch even Rennie live this way with us. Like, I know he loves me, but he just thinks like, oh, maybe we'll get together in 2 years, or something. It's like people just put things off for a later time as if they're going to have that later time. And I think when you live awake to your mortality, what you're doing is you're saying, this day is the day that I need to put to rest. Like, this day is the day that matters. This is the moment that matters. I'm with this person right now. This person matters, And if you're like a CEO of a company, well, then whoever's in your presence, if you give them that kind of was like, gosh, whenever he talked to me, it was like I was the most important person in the entire universe because he was just so present with that person, And I think when we offer our presence, when we offer that kind of, we live that way, not only do our relationships flourish, but we really left an imprint on people because that's just so nourishing. It's so incredibly nourishing to be given that kind of gaze by people and that kind of love.
I love it. Leave a legacy of love. That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. I mean, that's how you are. That's totally how I see you to be. And what I get is that, you, through this experience with Richard, you really became, that way.
I did. My kids told me that after Richard died that they're like, Mom, you're like Dad now. You were like you before, but they were like, you're like Dad now. You listen like Dad. You're attentive like Dad. You're like, Jazz has told me that. She's like, you're like Dad now. So funny. Ironically, wow. I'm so much more of a match for Richard now than I was with, you know what I mean? I was always a match for him. He adored me. I was like the spunky, I was his bunk. He adored me, but I think he would absolutely be head over heels, crazy in love with me as the woman I am today. Because I am so much like he was, and I wasn't. I don't know why. I just wasn't. I wasn't awake. I just wasn't awake. He was awake. I think my consciousness just expanded and grew just 1,000 years by going through my loss. It was like this. It was like as if Richard chose that I needed this, and maybe that was the soul contract that we had was that I needed this for my growth. I needed this for my soul. My soul was calling, and I do believe that we had this contract. I do believe that it was all this was the way it was going to be. But in that way, maybe we all have those contracts that every loss, every relationship that doesn't work out, it serves us as much in the going through the losing of it if we go through it with that evolution and that idea of love, I think so many times it's about winning, and it's about competitive edge, and it's about who's going to get what, and and then all of the good stuff that you can get, from going through that loss is lost in anger. It's there's no consciousness in anger. It's stuck. So that's completely losing the benefit of going through the heartbreak. And I think, that's something that CEOs, they're taught to be so competitive and, and that competitive edge, to go through divorce, it's all about, who's going to get what. Well, in the end, who cares? In the end, it's you're not going to leave with stuff, you know what I mean? Again, Richard's leather jacket and his watch are sitting right there. You know what I mean? He's gone, but they're there.
So complete that thought for me. So if let's imagine that we're just saying this, but it's most people, and we're going to talk about CEOs here. Most CEOs think it's about winning. It's about the competitive edge, but really, it's about X. What is that? How do you complete that statement?
I think really it's about what are you leaving behind in the impressions that you leave as a human being. It's about who are you to the world, not your achievements and accolades, but who are you to the relationship you example? What is it that you leave an example of? Like, how is it that your life is your message, like Mahatma Gandhi said? How is it that your life is your message? And and I think that's like a, that's like a core thing that if you keep that also in, that your life is actually your message, if you keep that in the forefront with the idea that your life is temporary, those are two things that really drive you towards living a super meaningful life. Super meaningful life that truly is going to leave a legacy that isn't about stuff. It's not about your achievement. It's not about, all the time you spent working. It's about, how the manner in which you live. Like, what is the manner in which you live? It's like that. I love maybe ending with that quote from Buddha that there's three things that matter most, and that is, did you love, did you love, how well did you love, how gracefully did you live, and how gracefully did you let go of things not meant for you?
Wow, hang on. That's amazing. Hold on. And how gracefully did you let go of things not meant for you?
Yeah, how gracefully did you let go of things not meant for you?
Not meant for you. Okay. I'm writing that down on my mirror. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know. Three things that matter most. How well did you love? How gracefully did you live? And how gracefully did you let go of things not meant for you?
I think that's a phenomenal closer.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. That wraps up your whole. That's it. That's so good.
Thank you. I know.
I think it's to say, what would be the opposite? Like what kind of questions would people be asking of themselves if they came from like a competitive, achievement oriented thing? It's like, if like if we were to like create a juxtaposition there at the end, it's like most people walk around in life thinking that the questions that matter most are, what did I achieve? How much did I get?
How much did I win? Like sometimes in business, it's all about, like, sometimes people operate as if it's all right that as long as they close the deal, and it doesn't matter, as long as it closed, it doesn't matter if it was a good deal for everyone. Or, I've been swindled out of $100,000 because somebody probably called that good business on their end, and they stole it from me. You know what I mean? Like, just because they were able to play the game. And, it's like just because you're able to play the game and win on one hand, does that make it right? I mean, really, does that make it do you feel good about that? Like,
and it's not even about right. I think in this message, it's like just because you can play the game and win does not mean that you are going to have a life that you love.
No, because you're not going to have a life that you love. Exactly. And especially if it means you're giving up, like you're not able to be present with people. Like if you can't unplug and be present with the people that you love, like because you're so driven. That's the other thing. Like CEOs it's so common, and I think they feel a lack of connection. Like they feel there's this other aspect of authenticity and what it means to be an authentic leader, and how if you show any kind of feminine qualities or how much that might be seen as weak, and if that was the case, then why is there this whole movement toward women being leaders,
Right. Totally.
I don't know, we probably shouldn't go there on this talk, but
no, but I get you. I like the possibility a lot about the potential ending here of being something like, something I actually saw this modeled in a talk that I loved recently, and it was just done so incredibly well. And it was, she was simply saying to him, she's like, I think that the question to ask is not X. I think the question that we should be asking is why. And then it was like the perfect summation, and it was just phenomenal. And I think that, it's like, because we build it all up to the difference between the two questions of how people are guiding their lives, I mean, it's like, it's something that's like, you sharing, we can play with it, right? But it's something about you sharing, like I think that most people walk around in their life, asking themselves the question, how much did I win? How much hurt did I prevent myself from experiencing? And maybe one other that we find that really dials that in, but these are the questions these are not the questions that are going to guide you to living a truly incredible life. The questions that they can guide us there, these are questions that Buddha said they are, how well did you love? How gratefully did you live? And how gracefully did you let go of things not meant for you? And then that's it.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I think that's awesome. I like the juxtaposition of potentially, the two is good, but maybe three. What's another question that you think people are asking themselves? It's like they're orienting questions that are actually leading to being asleep and being unhappy. How much did I win? That's one. How much hurt did I prevent myself from experiencing? That's one that comes to me, or some derivative of that.
Something about controlling others probably would be good.